Hi, everyone, and welcome. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining me for today's explainer. Let's just jump right in because we are about to completely challenge how you perceive your everyday reality. We're going to be exploring this fascinating intersection of quantum physics, cutting edge neuroscience, and your daily professional life. We're going to uncover a mechanism so incredibly powerful, it literally dictates the world you experience. I promise you, by the end of our time together today, you are not going to look at a simple daily problem the same way ever again. So, I want to kick things off by just asking you a really fundamental question. Does simply watching something change how it behaves? I know, it sounds a little like magic, right? Or maybe a weird philosophical riddle. But it's actually the mind-bending premise of one of the most famous experiments in physics, the double-slit experiment. In this test, scientists fire individual photons, just tiny particles of light, at a barrier with two tiny slits in it. And the results? Well, they absolutely shatter everything we think we know about how the physical world works. Just look at the stark contrast here. When scientists just let these photons do their thing entirely unobserved, those tiny units of light act like waves. They pass through the slits and create this beautifully complex interference pattern on the screen behind them. But here is the absolute shocker. The exact moment a detector is placed at either slit, literally just to observe which path the photon takes, that interference pattern completely vanishes. Bam, gone. The photon suddenly starts behaving like a solid particle instead. I mean, really let that sink in for a second. There is no physical force applied to the photon. The environment hasn't been altered at all. The only difference is whether or not someone is watching. The mere act of observation literally changes the physical outcome. Section 1, the brain's reality filter. Okay, so that's quantum mechanics in a nutshell, but let's bring this a bit closer to home, right into our own human biology. Because this whole phenomenon of observation, it isn't just something confined to high-tech physics labs. It's happening right now, continuously, inside your own head. 11 million. Think about that number. That is the estimated amount of bits of sensory data bombarding your brain every single second. Even right now, as you're tuned into this explainer, your brain is just being flooded. It's processing the temperature of the room, the feeling of your clothes resting against your skin, the subtle background noises, all that peripheral visual data, and, yeah, probably the sudden realization of exactly how your tongue is resting in your mouth right now. 11 million bits of information begging for your attention every single second. But then we get to this number, 50. Out of those 11 million bits of data pouring in, only a tiny microscopic fraction, roughly 50 bits, actually make it into your conscious processing. Everything else? It's just discarded, ignored. It literally never becomes part of your conscious reality. So the really big question here is, who or what is deciding which 50 bits get the VIP pass into your awareness? Well, the answer is your reticular activating system, often called the RAS. Think of your RAS as your brain's biological observation filter. It is the ultimate bouncer determining what gets through the gate. What this tells us is that your attention is absolutely not a passive act. You aren't just sitting back, neutrally absorbing the world around you, not at all. Your RAS is actively selecting the specific information that builds the literal reality you end up navigating. And here's the kicker. Whatever you consistently focus on, that programs your RAS to go out and hunt for more of it in that massive ocean of 11 million bits. Section 2, the biological reset. So we know intentional observation physically alters the brain. But to really grasp this, we need to look at some fascinating findings from a recent UC San Diego study published in Communications Biology, which is linked to Dr. Joe Dispenza's research. Researchers tracked 20 participants over a 7-day meditation retreat. They used fMRI imaging and really comprehensive blood analysis, and they got to see exactly what happens when people intentionally focus their attention. First up, the default mode network. which is basically your brain's center for all that self-referential chatter. It experienced decreased integration. In plain English, those participants saw a massive drop in that anxious, looping inner narrative we all get. Secondly, they looked at isolated brain regions that usually operate totally independently. Those experienced decreased modularity, meaning they became highly synchronized. The whole brain started communicating together in this beautiful coherence. And finally, right in the blood work, they saw actual physical changes in cellular energy and pain management. These researchers were honestly so astounded by the findings that they officially described the participants as having achieved a biological reset. I mean, just changing what they observed literally rewired their neural networks. It boosted nerve cell growth, and it activated natural pain relief mechanisms. All of that without a single pharmaceutical intervention. Your focus demonstrably, physically changes your biology. Section 3. Identifying fear versus opportunity. Okay, so how does all this mind-bending quantum and biological science actually translate to your daily life as a professional or business owner? Well, it really comes down to how you choose to observe the challenges staring you in the face. Let's say you're looking at a sudden cash flow gap. If you apply a fear-based focus to it, you view this as a fatal market threat. You're observing a complete disaster. And guess what? Your biology literally contracts in a defensive response. But if you apply an opportunity-based focus, you view that exact same cash flow gap as a rigorous efficiency audit. Suddenly, it's a vital prompt to optimize your operations. Remember, the data points in the bank account are exactly identical. But the reality you collapse into form? Entirely different. Let's take another really common scenario. Highly demanding, difficult clients. We all have them, right? Now, if you're trapped in a fear-based focus, you observe them as these exhausting burdens that are just meant to ruin your week. Every single email from them triggers this anxious biological response in your body. But what happens if you observe them through an opportunity lens? Suddenly, they become the ultimate stress test that your team actually needs to perfect your service delivery. They literally become your capability builders. You see, shifting your attention doesn't mean you're ignoring the challenge. It means you are fundamentally changing the reality you choose to extract from that situation. And here is the truly crucial point. You have to understand the downward spiral that kicks in if you don't take control of this. When a leader habitually observes only problems, cash flow gaps and threats, this biological and organizational cascade just begins to happen. First, your RAS gets programmed by fear, actively filtering through your daily 11 million bits of data just to find confirming negative evidence to prove you right. Second, your brain's default mode network fires up, and it continuously loops those anxious narratives. And third, which is probably the most dangerous part for any business, your surrounding team picks up on that energetic signal. They feel that tension. And as a result, your entire organization starts operating from this highly contracted, hyper-defensive state. Section 4, collapsing your reality. So we've traveled from subatomic photons to the complex filtration system of your brain, right down to your everyday office dynamics. And it really all funnels down to this one idea. Attention is not passive. It is highly, highly generative. The person who consciously chooses to observe opportunity, client potential, and team capability without letting fear become their primary lens literally collapses an entirely different reality into form. You are not just sitting back and watching your business or your life play out. You are actively creating it by deciding exactly where to point your observer effect. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to take with you today. Really look at your own life. Look at your daily habits and ask yourself, honestly, where is your attention directed right now? And what reality are you collapsing into form? Are you observing a wave of endless problems, or are you collapsing particles of opportunity? The science is absolutely clear on this. The choice is entirely yours. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really encourage you, go out and master your attention today.